because you're going to have to make a very strong case legally here, and this doesn't make sense, right? Then again, why is the demand for reparations always focused and framed in terms of Britain or the USA? Why is it always those two countries people are targeting? Why are no activists asking for reparations from the African states that were highly complicit in slavery? Not to forget the Islamic states that were highly complicit in slavery. Why are those states never fingered, never mentioned? Now, should these states not pay reparations? If slavery is bad, why is it that these states should be given a free pass? Can someone give me a reason? They provided the slaves that were transferred over the ocean, and millions more slaves were kept in slavery in Africa by other Africans. So, is it okay when black people do it? I guess we're going to be hearing answers soon. Now, this is the BBC News, right? This is July 2020. My Nigerian great-grandfather sold slaves. Okay, fascinating. Well, fine and well. Because yes, African nations were slave traders. So why does nobody ever actually speak about this unpleasant truth? African slavery is hushed up. African slaves enslaved other African tribes, enslaved other African tribes. They murdered, they killed, they had sex slaves, etc., etc. And yeah, the reason that their slave trade stopped was they were stopped by Westerners. So what about the Arabs and the Muslims who bought and sold African slaves for centuries before the British arrived and continued to do so into the 20th century until the British and the French forcibly stopped them? What about African slavery that carries on today? This still is happening today. Let me just catch up with some of the comments and questions to make sure I'm not missing anything. So it's funny how Cassius Clay was originally named after an abolitionist, changed his name to two slave owners, Muhammad and Ali. Yes. Someone lied to me about Islam, that's for sure. So, but why only black people who live in America asking for money compensation? In ancient times, there were hundreds of slaves, and even today there are many slaves in Muslim countries. Well, don't forget, the Irish were slaves. Now, people will try and tell you the Irish were not, blah, whatever. Let's continue. So what about African slavery that continues on today? Well, I don't see Greta Thunberg talking about Chinese pollution, Indian pollution. And 9 out of 10, okay, so if you look at the 10 most polluted rivers in the world, 9 of them are in Africa and Asia. Where's Greta Thunberg on that? Why is she not talking to these people in Asia and Africa? Because, I mean, would it be racist to highlight the simple fact that these people are polluters? No, I mean, you can only, I mean, Britain, let's say Britain puts out 2% of the pollution in the world and China does, I don't know, 20%. Why aren't you going after China? Well, hypocrites. That's why, because they're hypocrites. The International Labour Organization says that currently approximately 7 in every 1,000 Africans is a slave. This leaves us with 10 million people. That's probably a low estimate. In 2017, CNN reported hundreds of slaves are sold every week in Libya. And you know who we can thank for that? You know, she's married to Bill Clinton, right? So much energy is given to historic reparations and the historic plight of slaves. Why then is the practice of slavery by Africans and Muslims completely ignored? What is it with that? I mean, why would I want to take you seriously if you are going to ignore the mass of slavery and go on about something that happened in the 1800s? He bought me like a chicken. The struggle to end slavery in Niger. Al-Husseina Amadou was just one of thousands of girls in West Africa who was still bought cheaply as a wahaya, or fifth wife. Why a fifth wife? Does anyone know of any ideology or religion that has 4 wives and the guy can't get enough? I mean, look, man, quite bluntly, I think anyone who's had a girlfriend realizes it's tough enough managing one woman, dealing with just one. I mean, you know, why would you need a fifth one? Understand? So yeah, so let's see. I mean, this, I could be wrong here, but fifth wife, this could be talking about Islam. I don't know why they don't mention it, because her name is Husseina. I wonder, is that a sort of an Arabic style name, maybe Muslim? We were treated like animals, says Al-Husseina Amadou. Now we are free. Some estimates put the number of enslaved people in Niger at 130,000. So, yeah. So, yeah, the Shi is undoubtedly a Muslim. This is going to be a Muslim nation. At least there's going to be a population of Muslims. So, yeah, Diana Culp says some of us can trace our ancestry back to white indentured servants and slaves. Would we be owed reparations in the current climate? Of course not. Well, I think you should be given. I mean, look, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. You know, all of this equality and nonsense. So these people need to step up, and they need to, simply be, I don't know, equitable. So, but no, of course we know it's not about any kind of logic or reason. It's about simply shaming and destroying Western society, and it's hypocrisy from these people. So, that's kind of harsh, Nicodemus, but it's also, man, I know there are good Muslims in the world, right? They treat their wives well, they treat their families well, they treat their children well. I mean, this is true, obviously, but under the law, under Islamic law, yes, I mean, the Islamic law, is as an entity on its own. We know what it says. We know how it is. So many Muslims are better than their prophet. They're better than their law. They're better than their Allah. They're good humans because they're following their conscience. So they do the right thing that way. Yeah. So, Sean, that country has a funny name. Only a matter of time before white liberals cancel it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, let's have a look. So where's the outcry against black slavers? Nowhere, of course, right? But where's Greta Thunberg on any of, we would have more time for this argument if the people actively pursuing this whole reparations course of action were equally vocal about the fact of slavery by Africans and the horrendous plight of African slaves today. Today. Well, they don't care. There are more slaves in bondage today than crossed over the Atlantic. So I've done other shows on slavery. Look on my channel for slavery, right? Approximately, the numbers are roughly 350,000 to 500,000 slaves went to North America, which includes Canada. So that's a maximum, roughly 500,000 slaves went to North America. Today, you have 35 million black people in North America. Like in America alone, in the USA alone, you've got 33 plus million blacks, which means their population has gone up by 100 times. What they don't tell you is that something like 14 to 15 million black slaves went to South America, to those brown people, right? They don't talk about that, right? They don't talk about the black slave owners in the US. Why is that ignored? Black slave owners in the US who own thousands of slaves. Why is that not discussed, right? Because hypocrisy, that's why. And so there are more slaves today in bondage than crossed over the Atlantic. Why don't we talk about the minimum 20 million slaves that went to Arabia?